Okay. Good morning. Happy Monday. Why don't you guys type into the chat for me? Tell me a high or a low from having 3 days off. How was that? Was it a good 3 days? Was it too many days? Oh no. Seems like a rough weekend for you guys already. Not enough days. Wow, lots of you guys worked. My goodness. Yeah, this whole plan of putting all the AP classes in quarter 1, quarter 3, so that you guys could finish curriculum before we took the exam. Yeah, seems like a good idea, but that means you guys have like 2, 3, 4 AP classes right now. I cannot imagine the homework load you guys are under right now. Hopefully that means next quarter is going to be easier for you. Hopefully. Let's see if that happens. Okay. So before we get going, before we start on the energy level diagram, initially the plan was to review this class period, and then next for your asynchronous time today, you would be taking the test. But I really want to give us some good time to go through like practice problems and also talk about that POGL that you guys did on Thursday. So I adjusted the schedule a little bit. So if you guys looked at it, okay, here's today. So we're going to go through chapter 7 practice problems together today, or we can do other questions you guys have if you feel like the practice problems, you have a good handle on those and we don't actually need to do them. And then for asynchronous today, I'm just saying study. So I just want to give you guys that time to study, ask questions. If you go to the chat, oh, that's not it. If you go to the chat, there are a couple threads that have been started. So if you guys have questions there, you can type them into the chat. And then feel free to answer each other's questions too. That's kind of the point of this, for you guys to have a platform to like work together. And then some of you had questions on 81 and 71, I believe it was. So I answered those questions, but if it's not clear enough, let me know and I can kind of go back to that. And then that means that tomorrow during our live session, we'll do the test together. We'll be on Zoom and I'll put you guys in rooms, and all that means is that you guys can ask questions on the test if you have them when you run into them. And then your asynchronous time tomorrow will be a chapter 4 intro video. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little more time to kind of get your questions in order and answered and stuff like that. Any questions or comments on the schedule for the next couple days? Yeah, the test is just over chapter 7. Yes. The test is going to be like the test from last unit. Yes. And so Callie asked if you guys can work with other people on the test. So here's the deal. The resources I put out on this class, including the test, are not for me, right? I'm not the one that needs to learn this. I'm not the one that needs to like grow in study skills and grow into being like a college level science student, right? You guys need to. So there's nothing I can do to stop you from working with other people on the test, but you're not going to grow as a student if you work with other people on the test. So I'm going to tell you, no, do the test on your own. Give yourself a really good view of where you stand, what you understand, what you don't understand. And that includes like testing strategy too, for better or for worse. The AP chemistry test is not only a test of what you know in chemistry. It's what you know in chemistry. How good's your mental math? How good are your logic skills? That's what the AP test actually is testing you on. It's not just chemistry. And so I'm pushing you guys, and you need to push yourselves this year to make those steps in growth. And if you do that, I swear to you, you will grow. You will get there. You will turn the corner. It's going to be hard for a while. And eventually you're going to turn that corner and feel like it's normal. And you can do it. And you have a plan and you're getting better at these skills. I swear to you, that's going to happen. So long story short, don't work with people on the test, because if you do, you're not going to grow as a student. But with that said, there's nothing I can stop you. But with that said, your test score doesn't even affect your grade. So there you go. Other questions I see in the chat. So for homework tonight, we have to outline all of chapter 4. Technically, yes, Peyton, but it's not actually due until, the first time you're going to watch a chapter 4 video is tomorrow afternoon. The first time we're going to talk about it in person is Wednesday morning. So outline chapter 4 due by like Tuesday at midnight, kind of a deal. Yeah. Yes, you'll have a final at the end of this quarter. You will have a final at the end of every quarter. Yes. Okay. That's all the questions I see. If you have another question, feel free to say it out loud. Otherwise, let's talk about the warm-up. Shall we? So from the answers that you guys typed in, you have the right idea. Everyone said yes. Everyone said the 3d electron is going to be farther from the nucleus than the 2p electron, which is the correct answer. But the other half of this answer is the why. And the why is that chain of like logic that we talked about, how having a higher energy means having a farther distance. And you can justify that. So it says like based on the electron level diagram. So if you're ever answering a question and it says like base your answer on this one specific thing, you better reference that in your answer. So if you didn't reference the energy level diagram, you're definitely going to lose this point. So you want to reference the energy level diagram and how on the energy level diagram, the 2p electron is at a lower energy than the 3d electron. Right? Since the 3d is at a higher energy, it's going to be farther away from the nucleus. You can also reference like this equation, maybe if you want to talk about how higher energy also means having a higher frequency, which means it's going to have to travel a farther distance, like it's going to be dropping down more energy levels in order to get that higher frequency. You could also like tie that in. But that's the take home from this question. If they ever tell you to base your answer on something, that should be the first thing that you reference in your justification. Okay. Questions on that? So I'm going to go back to slide 33 because that is where the practice problem start. So hold on with me. We're on like 86 or something like that. All right, come on, little slides. Now you're just looping. Here we go. No. Okay, hold on. I'm going to end the pair deck. And then we're going to rejoin the pair deck. Because I think pair deck is causing us some issues. Oh my goodness. Here we go. All right. Launch for me. Oh, sweet. Okay, pair deck completely crashed. So we are officially typing answers into the chat. All right. So, second question here. The sodium atom has 11 electrons. 2 occupy a 1s orbital, 2 occupy 2s, and 1 occupies a 3s. Which of these s electrons experiences the smallest effective nuclear charge? I'll give you 30 seconds for that. All right, you are typing in your answer as 1s, 2s, or 3s. Okay, 3s, because Z effective is Z minus S, so nuclear charge minus shielding electrons. And so the 1s has no shielding electrons, so there is nothing that's going to cut that charge of the full 11 protons in that nucleus, right? Oh, actually, 2s, yeah. 2s is going to have 2 electrons in the core energy level, shielding it from that nuclear charge, and then 3s will have 4. So not everybody had that. Any questions? Or does that make sense? Here's another lesson in justifying things in AP Chemistry. I'm going to give you 2 tips here. First of all, if you can reference an equation, do it. If there's an equation that relates to the question, you want to reference that equation and use it in your justification. Tip number 2 is whenever they ask you to justify something, you should make a claim even if they've already made it. Restate the claim, provide evidence, and that could be like an equation, that could be a graph, that could be data, that could be a description, and then reasoning. And so the reasoning is yours. That's how you draw like the logic, you draw the relationship between the evidence and the claim is your like statement of reasoning. So when students lose points on free responses, a lot of times they only put the reasoning. They don't actually make a claim or state or like cite evidence. They only put their reasoning. And so their reasoning doesn't mean anything because it's not supported by anything. So when they ask you to justify, keep these 3 things in mind. It doesn't really pertain as much to this question. It would pertain more to the question before when they ask you this why or the justification. So as you are processing through this, keep those things in mind. Use an equation if you can. If they ask you to justify, in your justification, you should always make a claim, cite some evidence, and then draw a conclusion there. All right. Write the electron configuration of oxygen and the abbreviated electron configuration of phosphorus. I'll give you a minute to do this. And when you type it in, just use the little like caret for your for like an exponent, since you can't do an exponent in the chat. All right, we got some good electron configurations for oxygen going on. And then do the abbreviated electron configuration of phosphorus, also known as the noble gas configuration. All right. Way to choose the right noble gas. Good job. Looks like we are comfortable with electron configurations. Anybody have questions on that stuff? All right. Let's try this slide. I'll give you, let's just do the whole thing. Whole thing at the same time. I'll give you a minute. Also, feel free to ask questions as we go. Okay, so here's the why is it the carbon family. You're looking at you have 2 S's and you have 2 P's. So you can pick any row. That's why it's an N. N is just a variable. So 2 S's and 2 P's are going to land you in this family, and that family's first element is carbon. That's why it's the carbon family. Kudos to Paisley, Sydney, and Luis for actually typing out the whole configuration for bismuth. Well done there. Good job, you guys. Okay, questions on any of this? I'm officially watching the chat for questions. How do I know it is 4F? Yeah, the D is 1 row off. The F's are 2. Yes, the F's are 2 row off. 2 rows off. You got it. Good questions. Keep them coming. All right. So this should take you 1.5 minutes. I'll time you starting now. That was 30 seconds. Okay, that was 1 minute. And most of you have answered. So if you can answer that in under a minute, you just bought yourself 30 seconds for a different question. Yeah, it's E. Good job. So there's an electron in the 3p orbital before 3s is filled. That's why it's considered excited. You guys are going to own this. You're going to own this test. Okay. You are predicting lengths of CS, CH, and SH bonds. I'll give you 1 minute, 30 seconds. Try it. Ask your questions. So A with a dot over it is an angstrom. It is a unit of measurement, just like a meter is a unit of measurement. And 1 angstrom is 1 times 10 to the negative 10th meters. That's something you guys should memorize because they measure atoms a lot in angstroms. It's probably on your reference sheet, but it's probably also not worth looking up on your reference sheet. So it's just smaller than a nanometer. Okay, can anyone give me a CS bond length? Are we stuck on this? So remember, when you're talking about bonds or bond lengths or like atomic, this is getting back to an atomic radius, right? So if carbon's radius is 0.77 and sulfur's radius, that was not a very good circle, but whew, here we go. And sulfur's radius is 102. You just add them. So 102 plus 77. So it's getting, this question is getting back to the definition of an atomic radius. Do you know that the definition of an atomic radius is is found by measuring the length of a molecule, like if it was a carbon-carbon molecule, and then dividing it in half. So if that's true, then the opposite must also be true. If you have two radii, if you know two radii and you add them together, then it should be the bonding radius. So what is this one? 4, 1, 1. And this one should be 1, 3, 9. Something like that. So this is a good example in AP chemistry. You know, they want to know, can you do a problem forwards? Can you do a problem backwards? Can you do the problem if I start you in the middle? Can you do the problem backwards if I start you in the middle? Like, how many different angles can we look at the problem from? And that's why doing practice from different sources is really helpful. Also, doing lots of practice is really helpful. All right, arrange them in the increasing size. All right, here's kind of some logic for the first one. These two we can put together and say, okay, if AS is greater than P and P is greater than S, then we can definitely say that this order works. But since SE is greater than S and P is greater than S, we can't really fit SE in there with certainty. We'd have to look up SE on the chart. And then we can kind of do something similar. Let's see, NA is going to be bigger than MG. MG is going to be bigger than BE. So we can put these together. That works. NA, MG, BE. All right, some of you guys beat me there. It's good. It's a good thing. Okay. Minute and a half. That's 30 seconds. Hey, nice. Yes, magnesium's going to be the biggest, chlorine's going to be the smallest. You guys answered that in like 30 seconds. That's awesome. All right, how about this one? Minute and a half. All right, that was 30 seconds too. Nice, yes. Okay, again, I am willing to answer questions off these, but if you guys don't have questions, we can just keep moving. You guys are doing good. Here's another one, 1.5 minutes. That was 30 seconds. Yeah, you got it. It's the one in the same family, barium. I don't know if I have questions in here. I don't think I do. I think we talked about all the questions. Anybody have questions on like the group trends or the group reactions? Oh yeah. Let me go back. So magnesium and fluorine are going to combine to form a compound. And magnesium is a metal. Fluorine is a nonmetal, right? So the compound's going to be ionic, which means if you balance this, you have to consider their charges. So they're going to form this compound, which is a 1-to-2 ratio. And they're saying which atom will give the exact same ratio. So it has to be an atom in the same family, because if we look at the charges, lithium has a different charge than magnesium. So the compound that will be formed will be in a different ratio. Barium is in the same family as magnesium, so it'll have the same ionic charge as magnesium and form the same ratio. And then the rest of these are all different ions. Chlorine and neon won't even form compounds, ionic compounds with fluorine. Neon doesn't form compounds with anybody. Chlorine is a nonmetal. Nonmetal won't form compounds together. Okay, so there's a question on electron affinity. So electron affinity and electronegativity are really similar. Electronegativity is the ability of an atom to attract electrons to itself. Electron affinity is like the energy changes that occur when an atom attracts an electron to itself. So it's the same concept, but defined from two different angles. And the College Board has decided they want you to know electronegativity. You don't have to be able to describe it from the angle of electron affinity. So if they're asking you about electron affinity in Zoomdall, you can skip it, because we want you to know electronegativity. Okay, so there's a question, will there be mostly questions like this on the test? Or will they be more like the ones we did for chapter 7 in the book? So here's kind of the deal. When I'm planning out things for you to learn, I want you to have a bunch of different repetition and see things from different angles, right? Because the more repetition you have, the more the concept forms in your mind. And the more angles you see, the more the concept kind of solidifies, right? So first of all, the first point of contact is reading the outline. The second point of contact is slides, which we go through together. And in the slides, we do problems. And the problems that we do are super basic. They are like, do you get the concepts or not? But in addition to like the questions off the slides, I also throw in AP multiple choice questions like the one that's on this slide. So this is an actual question off an actual test from like the last 10 years, right? So some of the questions that I have you answer in the slides are not AP level questions. They are super basic, like, do you get the concept we just talked about? The AP multiple choice questions will be similar to the ones you see on the test. And then you'll see the book questions. That's kind of like the third point of contact that I like force you to go through. And the book questions are at a higher level and they should be closer to like AP style questions. Sometimes they're even more in depth because they're not designed for you to be able to answer them within a minute and a half, right? They're also not designed for you to be able to answer them without a calculator. And then the contact beyond that, you should be asking yourself, like, okay, am I at a point by the time I get to point 3, am I at a point where I can answer these questions first time through without having to look stuff up or ask someone a question, right? And if the answer is yes, you move on. If the answer is no, you need to go look for another source. And you need to repeat that, I mean, ideally, given time constraints, until you're able to answer these questions first time through without asking questions on them and without resources, right? That means you're super ready for the test. So this could be like Google, it could be the College Board, it could be ChemiBear, it could be the multiple choice practice problems in your book, it could be a review book that you found, like a Princeton review book or a Pearson review book, anything like that. It could be, another like website. It could be Khan Academy. You have a lot of options there. Okay, so that was kind of in depth, but did I answer your question, Lainey? Okay. Atomic radius trend. Can I go over the atomic radius trend? Yes. So in the atomic radius trend, if we look at like lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. Okay. So the thing that's changing as we go left to right is atomic charge. So that Z is changing. We go from 3+ to 4+ to 5+, all the way down to a 9+, a 10+, right? So Z is changing. S is staying consistent. For this row, your shielding electrons is always 2, which means Z effective is increasing as you go. And as Z effective increases, as your nuclear charge increases, it's going to pull the electrons closer and closer and closer and closer. So lithium's attraction to an electron is going to be fairly weak compared to fluorine's attraction to an electron, right? Fluorine's going to have a much stronger attraction to its valence electrons. And so it's going to be able to pull them closer, which means lithium is going to be kind of big. Fluorine is going to be kind of small. So the higher Z effective you have, the closer it pulls those valence electrons and the smaller it is. So when you're going left to right for atomic radius, it's going to decrease. When you're going top to bottom, hydrogen, lithium, sodium, and so on and so forth, you're going to gain energy levels. And every energy level means you also gain shielding electrons. So the valence electrons are going to be kicked farther out, farther out, farther out. So top to bottom, atomic radius is going to increase because those energy levels are going to kick out the electron. Also, the increased shielding and the inside is also going to kick out the electron farther and farther. The one catch on atomic radius trend, and I think we are Oh my goodness. Are we past? We're past. We're past. Ionic radius. So that's the one thing we didn't talk about was ionic radius, but we can talk about that later. Okay. Ooh, that goes fast. All right, good job today. I'm going to run home and try and be back for office hours if possible. And then if you have questions, put it in that chat tonight and then either answer each other's or I'll try and answer what I can too. Okay?